What do you do when your million-dollar ego gets sucker-punched by a woman who'd rather eat nails than fall for your charm? Buckle up, because in the glittering chaos of New York City, a smug billionaire's cocky bet is about to explode into a storm of secrets, sass, and a past that bites harder than a Times Square street performer. This mystic life story's tale is a roller coaster of mystery thicker than a subway rat's attitude, drama juicier than a gossip mag, and a redemption that'll make you laugh, cry, and cheer. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments, and if you love stories that dish out justice with a side of snark, smash that subscribe button for Mystic Life Stories. Let's dive into a Manhattan night where one dumb bet flips everything upside down. Manhattan sparkled like it was trying to one-up the stars, its skyscrapers winking at the Hudson River's glow. On the 50th floor of a Fifth Avenue tower, a penthouse ballroom hosted a bash so fancy it made regular folks feel like they'd stumbled into a Vogue photo shoot. Crystal chandeliers glittered like frozen fireworks, showering light on billionaires in tuxes and influencers in dresses prissier than a Brooklyn co-op. Waiters weaved through with trays of caviar and champagne that probably had its own LinkedIn profile. At the center of this circus was Ethan Carter, a 35-year-old tech mogul who strutted like he'd trademarked confidence. With his slick hair, a Rolex that screamed, "I'm loaded," and a grin sharper than a Wall Street deal, Ethan was the self-anointed emperor of this concrete empire. His life was a blur of supercars, rooftop ragers, and women who'd vault over their Manolos for a TikTok with him. Sure, his soul was emptier than a midtown deli at midnight, but who needs depth when your bank account's deeper than the Mariana Trench? Ethan was mid-flirt with a model who looked like she'd been CGI'd into reality, sipping a $300 bourbon when his buddy Ryan rolled up. Ryan, a hedge fund bro with a smirk like he'd just sold you a haunted condo, had been Ethan's wingman since their Yale frat days. "Yo, Emperor Carter," Ryan teased, twirling his drink. "You're coasting like a tourist in Times Square. Bet I can jolt you awake." Ethan's eyebrow arched, his smirk practically ensured. "Jolt me? Pal, I wrote the book on winning." Ryan's grin turned wicked. "Oh yeah? Bet you $1 million you can't marry a woman who's not your usual arm candy and keep her for 6 months." The crowd, too busy flexing for Instagram, missed the moment, but Ethan's laugh boomed like a bad rom-com. "$1 million? That's my coffee budget. Pick the girl and I'll have her picking out fake wedding china by Tuesday." Their glasses clinked, Ethan already tasting victory. To him, this was like swiping right with a platinum card. Easy money. Ever wonder what happens when a guy who thinks he's God's gift to the world gets taken down a peg by a woman who's allergic to his charm? Welcome to New York City, where a smug millionaire's million-dollar bet spins into a whirlwind of secrets, sass, and a past he'd rather forget. This tale's got it all. Mystery thicker than a Brooklyn fog, drama juicier than a tabloid headline, and a redemption that'll hit you right in the feels. Where are you tuning in from? Drop your city in the comments, and if you're a sucker for stories that serve justice with a side of snark, hit that subscribe button for Mystic Life Stories. Let's roll into a Manhattan night where one cocky bet changes everything. Picture Manhattan at its glitziest, skyscrapers twinkling like they're auditioning for a Hollywood blockbuster, the Hudson River catching every glow. Up on the 50th floor of a Fifth Avenue tower, a penthouse ballroom was throwing the kind of party that makes regular folks feel like they're crashing a Met Gala after-party. Crystal chandeliers dangled like frozen fireworks, casting light on billionaires in tuxes and starlets in gowns that cost more than a Brooklyn brownstone. Waiters glided through with trays of caviar and champagne so expensive it probably had its own trust fund. At the heart of this circus stood Ethan Carter, A 35-year-old tech mogul who strutted like he invented swagger. With his perfectly tousled hair, a Rolex that screamed, "I'm richer than you," and a smirk sharper than a Wall Street shark's, Ethan was the self-proclaimed king of this concrete jungle. His life? A non-stop parade of Lamborghinis, penthouse parties, and women who'd trip over their stilettos for a selfie with him. Sure, his heart was emptier than a Times Square Starbucks at 3 a.m., but who needs feelings when you've got a bank account with more zeros than a binary code? Ethan was mid-sip of a $300 bourbon, flirting with a model who looked like she'd been photoshopped into existence, when his best friend Ryan sauntered over. Ryan, a hedge fund bro with the grin of a guy who'd sell you a bridge and make you thank him, had been Ethan's wingman since their Yale days. "Yo, King Carter," Ryan drawled, swirling his drink. "You look like you're sleepwalking through your own empire. Bet I can wake you up." Ethan raised an eyebrow, his smirk practically copyrighted. "Wake me up? Buddy, I invented winning." Ryan's eyes gleamed like he'd just found the perfect prank. "Oh yeah? Bet you $1 million you can't marry a woman who's not your type and keep her for 6 months." The crowd didn't hear, too busy name-dropping and Instagram posing, but Ethan's laugh echoed like a sitcom laugh track. "$1 million? That's pocket change. Pick the girl and I'll have her planning our fake honeymoon by next week." He clinked his glass against Ryan's, already picturing the victory lap. To Ethan, this was like shooting fish in a barrel with a bazooka, child's play for a guy who closed billion-dollar deals before breakfast. Ryan scanned the room, his gaze landing on Emily Harper like a heat-seeking missile. Emily, 32, was a Brooklyn nonprofit warrior who looked like she'd wandered into the gala by mistake. Her thrift store cardigan screamed, "I'd rather be at a soup kitchen," and her ponytail was more, "I've got work to do," than, "Look at me." She ran a charity for struggling families, her passion as fierce as her disdain for the gala's excess. Emily was there to charm a donor, not to play in Ethan's sandbox, but Ryan saw her as Ethan's kryptonite. "Her," Ryan said, pointing with his glass. "Good luck, Romeo." Ethan's smirk didn't flicker. He adjusted his tie like a knight polishing his armor and strutted over, flashing a grin that could sell ice to penguins. "Ethan Carter," he said, offering a hand like he was bestowing a royal favor. Emily glanced at it, then at his face, her expression as flat as day-old soda. "Emily Harper. And no, I don't do autographs." The nearby socialites gasped. Nobody said no to Ethan Carter. Ethan blinked, his ego taking a hit like a Tesla in a fender bender, but he recovered with a chuckle. "Feisty, I like it. How about a deal instead?" He pitched the fake marriage, 6 months, a clean divorce, and a fat check for her trouble. Emily's eyes narrowed, but to everyone's shock, she nodded. "Fine, but don't expect me to swoon." Ethan grinned, thinking he'd already won. "Oh, buddy, you're in for a ride." The plot thickened faster than a New York traffic jam. The next day, Ethan tailed Emily to a gritty Brooklyn diner, curious about his new fiancée. He lingered by the counter, pretending to scroll his phone, when he overheard her with her friend Sarah, a buzz-cut artist who looked like she'd fight a bear for fun. Sarah was spitting fire. "You're nuts, Em! Signing up with that sleaze again? After what he did?" Ethan's ears perked up like a dog hearing a squeaky toy. Again. He squinted, trying to place Emily's face. Nothing. Had he swiped past her on a dating app? Spilled coffee on her at a Starbucks? Sarah's voice dropped. "And what about Holt?" "You know he's bad news." Ethan nearly choked on his overpriced latte. Richard Holt, the Chicago tycoon who ate small businesses for breakfast and spat out the bones. What was he doing in this soap opera? Emily's reply was cool as ice. "Trust me, Sarah. I've got this." Sarah threw up her hands. "You're dancing with the devil in a $5,000 suit." Ethan slipped out, his brain buzzing like a faulty server. Emily wasn't just a do-gooder, she was a walking mystery, and his million-dollar bet was starting to feel like a bad stock tip. As Ethan climbed into his chauffeured Bentley, Manhattan's neon jungle blurring past, his smirk was gone. The gala's champagne buzz had faded, replaced by a nagging itch. Emily Harper wasn't playing his game. She was running her own, and it was tied to a past he couldn't remember. Worse, Holt's name was like a ghost whispering trouble. Ethan had thought he was the hunter, but now he felt like the prey, and the city's bright lights hid shadows ready to pounce. This wasn't just a bet anymore, it was a high-stakes gamble with secrets that could bankrupt more than his wallet. Content for Mystic Life Stories. A millionaire's bet turns into a shocking redemption. Loving this wild ride of mystery and redemption? Hit that subscribe button to Mystic Life Stories for more heart-pounding tales of justice and sass. Drop a comment with your thoughts and join the story squad. So what happens when a billionaire playboy and a Brooklyn firebrand are forced to play house? Spoiler alert. It's less rom-com and more Game of Thrones with better lighting. Ethan Carter thought he'd charm Emily Harper into submission with his deep pockets and deeper dimples, but Emily's got a spine of steel and a knack for turning his plans into punchlines. As their fake marriage kicks off, the penthouse becomes a battlefield, with secrets simmering and a shadowy name, Richard Holt, lurking in the wings. Stick with us on Mystic Life Stories for a tale of wit, warfare, and a rain-soaked moment that changes the rules. Drop a comment with your favorite plot twist ever, and if you're loving this mix of mystery and sass, hit subscribe and join the story squad. The ink was barely dry on their fake marriage certificate when Ethan Carter went full Tony Stark, whisking Emily Harper into his Manhattan penthouse that screamed, "I'm richer than a small country." Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a private IMAX screen. Gold-plated faucets winked in the bathrooms, and a robot vacuum zipped around like it was auditioning for Star Wars. Ethan, in his designer sweatpants that probably cost more than Emily's rent, handed her a black Amex card with a grin that said, "Bow to your king." "Go wild, Mrs. Carter," he smirked, expecting her to melt into a puddle of gratitude. Emily, in her thrift store jeans and a t-shirt that read, "Save the planet, not your ego," took one look at the card and snorted. "What's this, your personality replacement?" She tossed it onto a marble countertop like it was a used napkin, leaving Ethan's jaw on the floor. Round 1, Emily. Determined to win, Ethan unleashed a charm offensive that could have sold sand in the Sahara. He showered Emily with gifts, a diamond necklace that sparkled like a disco ball, a Birkin bag that could have funded her non-profit for a year, front-row tickets to a Broadway show where the actors practically bowed to him. "This is how you woo a woman," he bragged to Ryan over a cigar in his private lounge, puffing like he'd already won the bet. But Emily was playing chess while Ethan was stuck on checkers. She donated the necklace to a charity auction, smirking as it raised $50,000 for homeless kids. The Birkin? Gifted to a single mom at her non-profit with a note. "Sell this for diapers." The Broadway tickets? She gave them to her interns, quipping, "Enjoy the show. I'd rather watch paint dry than sit next to Mr. Ego." Ethan's grin faltered, his ego taking hits like a piñata at a kid's party. "She's stubborn," he muttered to Ryan, who laughed so hard he nearly choked on his whiskey. "Stubborn? Bro, she's eating you for breakfast." Ethan wasn't just losing the gift war, he was trying to control the board. He started meddling with Emily's non-profit, suggesting corporate sponsors who were basically his cronies. "Think big, Em," he said, leaning back in his leather office chair like a wannabe mob boss. "My guys can triple your budget." Emily saw through it faster than a New York minute. "Your guys want my soul on a platter," she shot back, her eyes narrowing. She rerouted his sponsors with a few sharp emails, redirecting funds to grassroots groups instead. Ethan's phone buzzed with complaints from his buddies, and he slammed his desk, muttering, "Who is this woman?" Emily, sipping coffee in her Brooklyn office, just smiled. Round two, still Emily. But the penthouse wasn't just a war zone, it was a pressure cooker, and cracks started showing. Ethan upped the ante with staged romance, orchestrating candlelit dinners that felt like auditions for a rom-com he didn't understand. One night, he hired a Michelin star chef to whip up a 5-course meal, complete with a violinist who looked like he was begging to be anywhere else. Ethan, in a suit that screamed, "I'm irresistible," toasted Emily with a $500 bottle of wine. "To us," he said, winking. Emily, in a hoodie she'd worn for 3 days straight, raised her water glass. "To surviving you," she deadpanned, and the violinist missed a note, trying not to laugh. Ethan's charm was sinking faster than a lead balloon, but he couldn't stop grinning at her nerve. Was he liking this? Then came the night that flipped the script. Their chauffeured SUV broke down in Central Park during a freak rainstorm, stranding them under a soggy oak tree. Ethan, drenched in his $2,000 jacket, cursed like a sailor, while Emily, unfazed, pulled a thermos of coffee from her bag. "You gonna cry about it or drink?" she teased, tossing him a cup. Huddled under her ratty umbrella, they traded stories. Ethan's silver spoon childhood where nannies raised him, Emily's Brooklyn summers dodging sprinklers with her dad. Ethan found himself laughing, really laughing, at Emily's tale of her dad's awful dance moves at her quinceañera. "He looked like a drunk flamingo," she said, giggling. For a moment, the bet, the penthouse, the whole charade vanished. Ethan caught himself staring, wondering if her smile always lit up like that. But the spell broke when the tow truck arrived, and Emily's guard snapped back up. "Don't get any ideas, Richie Rich," she said, climbing into the cab. Ethan, soaked and smitten, just shook his head. "Wouldn't dream of it," he lied. The next day, Emily's friend Sarah dropped a bomb. Cornering her at a Brooklyn cafe, Sarah was all fire and brimstone. "You're getting cozy with that slime ball, Em. Don't forget what he did, or who he's tied to." Emily's jaw tightened. "I'm not cozy. I'm in control." Sarah leaned closer, voice low. "Control? With Richard Holt in the mix? That guy's a corporate vampire, and Ethan's his lapdog." Ethan, eavesdropping from a booth, because apparently he was now a part-time spy, nearly spilled his overpriced latte. Richard Holt again? The Chicago tycoon who crushed companies like soda cans? Ethan's mind raced. Had Holt been part of his past deals? He couldn't shake Sarah's words, or the way Emily's eyes darkened at Holt's name. Back in his penthouse, Ethan stared at the city skyline, his usual swagger replaced by a nagging dread. Emily wasn't just dodging his charm. She was a ticking time bomb, and Holt was the fuse. This fake marriage was no longer a game. It was a high-stakes showdown, and Ethan was starting to realize he might not know the rules. Content for Mystic Life Stories. A millionaire's bet turns into a shocking redemption. Loving this wild ride of mystery and redemption? Hit that subscribe button to Mystic Life Stories for more heart-pounding tales of justice and sass. Drop a comment with your thoughts and join the story squad. What happens when the truth hits harder than a New York taxi in rush hour? 3 months into their fake marriage, Ethan Carter's smug world is about to get rocked by a secret so devastating, it'll make his penthouse feel like a house of cards. Emily Harper's been playing a long game, and when she drops her bombshell, it's not just Ethan who's shaken. A shadowy tycoon named Richard Holt steps into the spotlight, pulling strings that could unravel them both. This is Mystic Life Stories, where mystery, drama, and justice collide with a side of snark. Drop a comment with the wildest plot twist you've ever seen, and if you're loving this roller coaster of secrets and sass, hit subscribe to join the Story Squad. 3 months into the fake marriage, the Manhattan penthouse was less a love nest and more a glitzy cage match. Ethan Carter, still clinging to his "I'm the king" vibes, had tried every trick in his billionaire playbook. Diamonds, dinners, even a private helicopter ride over the city that Emily dismissed with a yawn and a quip. "What's next? A pony with my name on it?" Her relentless deflections were chipping away at his ego like a jackhammer. But Ethan wasn't waving the white flag. He leaned into his control freak side, tweaking Emily's nonprofit with helpful calls to his corporate pals, only to get schooled when she outmaneuvered him with a few keystrokes. "Checkmate, Richie Rich," she'd said, smirking over her coffee. Ethan's grin was starting to look like a grimace, and his buddy Ryan wasn't helping, texting him memes of cartoon villains with captions like, "You versus Emily, 0 to 10. Ethan muttered to himself, "She's just a bet." But deep down, that Central Park rain-soaked laugh of hers was haunting him like a catchy song stuck in his head. The tension finally exploded one night in the penthouse's sleek dining room, where a single candle flickered like it knew drama was coming. Ethan, in a silk shirt that screamed, "I'm still hot," was mid-pitch about a gala he wanted Emily to attend. "It's good for our image," he insisted, as if they were a real couple. Emily, in her usual hoodie and jeans combo, set down her fork with a clink that echoed like a gavel. "Our image?" she said, her voice low and sharp enough to cut glass. "You think this is about image?" Ethan froze, his bourbon glass halfway to his lips, as Emily's eyes burned with a fire he hadn't seen before. "You destroyed my family, Ethan," she said, each word a dagger. "This marriage? It's not a bet to me. It's payback." The room went dead silent, the city's hum outside the only sound. Ethan's glass slipped, shattering on the marble floor like his entire worldview. Emily stood, her hands trembling but her voice steady. She laid it bare. Years ago, Ethan's tech empire had steamrolled her father's small company in upstate New York, a family-run tech firm that was her dad's pride and joy. Ethan's ruthless takeover, slashing budgets, firing workers, left the company bankrupt. The stress broke her father, a kind man who'd taught Emily to fix computers and dance like nobody was watching. He spiraled into depression and took his own life, leaving Emily and her mother to pick up the pieces. Ethan's face drained of color, his usual swagger replaced by a gut punch of guilt. I didn't know," he stammered, but Emily wasn't done. "That's not all," she whispered, tears glistening. "I was pregnant then. The grief, the chaos, it cost me my baby." Ethan's knees buckled and he gripped the table, the weight of her words crushing him like a collapsing skyscraper. Emily's revenge was clear. This fake marriage was her way to make him feel the same helplessness she'd endured. But then came a twist that turned the knife. Ethan, his voice raw, sank into a chair. "It wasn't just me, Emily," he said, barely above a whisper. He confessed that Richard Holt, a Chicago tycoon with a reputation for chewing up companies and spitting out misery, had strong-armed him into the takeover. Holt had threatened to tank Ethan's empire, his investors, his board, his entire legacy, if he didn't play ball. "I was young, stupid," Ethan said, his eyes haunted. "I thought I was saving my company. I didn't know about your dad. Or you." Emily's breath caught, her revenge-fueled certainty cracking. Was Ethan a monster or just another pawn? Before she could process it, her phone pinged with an encrypted email that made her blood run cold. "You're both dancing to my tune. Want the truth about your father? Find me. RH." Richard Holt wasn't just a name from the past. He was watching them, orchestrating this chaos like a puppet master. Ethan saw the email over her shoulder and cursed under his breath. "He's playing us," he said, his arrogance replaced by dread. Emily faced a choice that felt like a tightrope over a canyon. Keep hating Ethan or team up to expose the real villain. The penthouse felt smaller now, the glittering skyline outside mocking their unraveling lives. Emily's journal, tucked in her bag, held frantic new entries. "Dad, is this what you'd want? Revenge or justice?" Ethan, meanwhile, stared at the shattered glass on the floor, seeing his reflection in the shards, a man who'd built an empire on sand. Holt's email was a ticking bomb, hinting at deeper secrets about her father's death. Was Holt the true architect of her family's ruin? And what else was he hiding? Emily's friend Sarah's warning echoed in her mind. "Holt's a vampire, Em. Don't trust Ethan. He's in too deep." Ethan, still reeling, tried to speak, but Emily cut him off with a look that could have frozen the Hudson. "Don't," she said, her voice brittle. "You don't get to fix this with words." She stormed out, leaving Ethan alone with his guilt and a nagging fear. Holt wasn't just a ghost, he was a predator, and they were both in his sights. The bet was a distant memory now, replaced by a high-stakes hunt for truth where the wrong move could cost everything. What happens when revenge feels colder than a New York winter, but the truth is hotter than a subway in July? After Emily Harper's bombshell about her tragic past, Ethan Carter's world is crumbling faster than a stale bagel. Her icy vengeance is carving him up, but a cryptic offer from the shadowy Richard Holt threatens to pull her into an even darker game. Will Emily stick to her plan to destroy Ethan, or will Holt's sinister whispers change everything? This is Mystic Life Stories, serving mystery, drama, and justice with a sprinkle of sass. Drop a comment with the pettiest revenge you've ever pulled. And if you're hooked on this tale of secrets and showdowns, smash that subscribe button to join the story squad. The penthouse that once glittered like Ethan Carter's personal kingdom now felt like a gilded tomb. 3 months after Emily's gut-wrenching revelation, the air between them was arctic, every interaction a silent skirmish in their ongoing war. Emily's revenge was a masterclass in cold precision. She didn't yell or throw plates. She froze Ethan out with a calculated chill that made his billions feel like pocket change. Shared dinners? Canceled, with Emily leaving a post-it on the fridge. "Eat your ego, I'm busy." Public events? She'd show up at his swanky Manhattan galas, her thrift store dress a deliberate middle finger to his elite crowd, whispering just loud enough for his investors to hear. "Ask Ethan about upstate New York." Her words were like poison darts, each one landing with a smirk that said, "Checkmate, Richie Rich." Ethan, who once strutted like he owned the city, now flinched at her shadow, his trademark smirk replaced by a hunted look. "She's killing me," he groaned to Ryan over a whiskey, who cackled, "Bro, she's not killing you, she's burying you." Emily's icy campaign wasn't just personal, it was public. Rumors about Ethan's past takeover of her father's company spread like wildfire through Manhattan's gossip mill, fanned by her strategic appearances. Business partners started pulling out, their emails curt. "We're reassessing our alignment." His stock ticker, once a source of pride, blinked red on his office screens, each dip a reminder of his sins. The tabloids piled on with headlines like "Tech King's Dark Secret," "Ruined Family," "Broken Dreams." Ethan's penthouse, with its robot vacuums and gold-plated faucets, felt like a mockery of his unraveling empire. He'd pace the marble floors at 3 a.m., staring at the skyline, muttering, "I didn't mean to hurt her." But guilt was a lousy architect. and his world was collapsing faster than a sandcastle at high tide. Then Richard Holt struck, like a snake slithering out of the shadows. One night, as Emily sat in her Brooklyn office, her laptop pinged with another encrypted email. "I have proof your father's death wasn't just Ethan's fault. Keep him in the dark, and I'll give you everything. R.H." Her heart raced. Proof? The idea of answers about her dad's final days was a siren call, but Holt's price was steep. Betray Ethan, refuse his redemption, and let him drown in his guilt. Emily's journal entries turned frantic. "Dad, is this justice or a trap? Holt's playing me. But what if he's right?" Her fingers hovered over the reply button, temptation gnawing at her resolve. Sarah, her buzz-cut confidant, wasn't buying it. "Holt's a corporate vulture, Em," she warned over coffee, her voice sharp. "He'll chew you up and spit you out. Ethan's a jerk, but don't let Holt make you his pawn." Emily nodded. But the email's promise lingered like a bad dream, splitting her between vengeance and the truth. Ethan, meanwhile, was drowning in his own mess, but clawing for air. He tried apologies, handwritten notes, voicemails that sounded like a kicked puppy, but Emily wasn't having it. "Words are cheaper than your knockoff cologne," she snapped, tossing his latest letter into a recycling bin with a flourish that would have made a Broadway diva proud. At a charity event, he cornered her, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. "Emily, I'm trying," he pleaded, his voice cracking. She spun on him, her ponytail whipping like a warning flag. "Trying? You don't get a gold star for trying to fix a life you broke?" The crowd nearby froze, their champagne flutes mid-sip, as Emily stormed off, leaving Ethan looking like a deflated balloon at a kid's party. Ryan, watching from the bar, texted him a gif of a cartoon anvil dropping on a coyote. "You're cooked, man," he wrote. Ethan didn't reply. He was too busy staring at Emily's retreating figure, wondering if he'd ever dig himself out of this hole. Holt's email wasn't the only shadow looming. Ethan's own digging uncovered whispers about the tycoon's past, shady deals, companies crushed for sport, and a knack for making enemies disappear. He stumbled across an old article linking Holt to a string of accidents tied to his takeovers, including one that felt too close to home. A medical firm Holt funded, rumored to have botched care for struggling families. Could that connect to Emily's miscarriage? The thought made Ethan's stomach churn, but he kept it to himself, afraid to spark her pain without proof. Instead, he doubled down on amends, showing up at her nonprofit with a check for $100,000. "For the kids," he said, avoiding her eyes. Emily took it, but her smile was razor thin. "Don't think this buys you a soul," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm that could have curdled milk. Ethan nodded, his usual bravado gone, replaced by a quiet resolve to keep fighting, even if she hated him forever. The city pulsed outside, its neon lights a stark contrast to the darkness closing in. Emily's journal grew heavier with doubt. Am I punishing Ethan or myself? Holt's dangling the truth, but at what cost? Ethan, staring at his reflection in a shattered penthouse mirror, saw a man he barely recognized. No longer the king, just a guy trying to outrun his past. Holt's offer hung over Emily like a storm cloud, tempting her to trade justice for answers. Would she take the bait and let Ethan burn, or see through Holt's game? The penthouse was no longer a battlefield. It was a pressure cooker, and one wrong move could blow it all to bits. With Holt watching, every step felt like a dance on a razor's edge, and the truth was still out there, waiting to strike. What does it take to claw your way back from a life built on mistakes? Ethan Carter's empire is in tatters, his ego shredded by Emily Harper's icy revenge, but now he's rolling up his sleeves to prove he's more than a villain in her story. Meanwhile, Emily's wrestling with a devil's deal from the shadowy Richard Holt and a discovery about her past could change everything. This is Mystic Life Stories, where mystery, drama, and justice dance with a dash of sass. Drop a comment with the biggest redemption you've ever witnessed. And if you're hooked on this saga of secrets and second chances, hit that subscribe button to join the story squad. The Manhattan penthouse, once Ethan Carter's throne room, was now a ghost town of his former glory. 4 months into the fake marriage, the gold-plated faucets and robot vacuums mocked his unraveling life. Emily's revenge had left him a pariah. Business partners ghosted him, tabloids painted him as a heartless mogul, and his stock ticker bled red like a crime scene. Ethan, who'd once strutted like he owned the skyline, now slouched in his office, staring at a cracked whiskey glass that matched his fractured pride. "I'm not that guy anymore," he muttered. But the mirror disagreed, reflecting a man haunted by guilt. Emily's words about her father's suicide, her lost child, played on a loop in his head, each one a jab to his battered ego. Yet, amid the wreckage, a spark flickered. Ethan was done begging for forgiveness. It was time to earn it, even if Emily laughed in his face. And knowing her, she probably would. Ethan's redemption kicked off like a man trying to rebuild a skyscraper with a toy hammer. He started small, tracking down families his company had crushed during his takeover days. He showed up at their doors, no cameras, no PR team, with apologies that felt like pulling teeth. In Syracuse, a former employee's widow slammed her door, shouting, "You think sorry buys back my husband's job?" In Rochester, a small business owner threw a mug at him, yelling, "Money doesn't fix broken dreams." Ethan took every hit, his $5,000 suit collecting coffee stains and curses. "Ouch," he muttered after the mug incident, rubbing his shoulder. "But I deserved that." He wrote checks to rebuild what he'd broken, funding new startups, covering medical bills, knowing it was a drop in the bucket. Back in Manhattan, he launched a foundation in Emily's father's name, supporting small businesses across New York. At the press conference, he looked like a kicked puppy, not a king, saying, "It's a start. I owe them more." Reporters whispered, "Is this a stunt?" But Ethan didn't care. He was fighting for a soul he wasn't sure he had. Emily watched from the sidelines, her Brooklyn office a fortress of skepticism. She'd get texts from Sarah. "Heard your boy's playing Mother Teresa now. You buying it?" Emily's reply was a single emoji. Period. Yet, she couldn't ignore the news. Ethan's foundation had saved a family's bakery, funded a tech camp for kids. Her journal entries to her late father grew conflicted. "Dad, he's trying. But can a leopard change its spots? Or is this just another game?" She'd catch glimpses of Ethan at her nonprofit's events, quietly dropping off donations, his usual swagger replaced by a hunched posture. Once, she overheard him tell a volunteer, "Make sure the kids get the laptops, not the fancy ones, just what they need." Emily raised an eyebrow, muttering, "Who kidnapped Mr. Rolex?" Her sarcasm was sharp, but a tiny crack formed in her armor. Was he changing? Then came the bombshell that shook them both. Ethan, digging into Richard Holt's past, uncovered a paper trail that made his blood run cold. Holt hadn't just pressured him into the takeover that killed Emily's father. He'd orchestrated a web of sabotage. Documents linked Holt to a shady medical firm that cut corners, botching care for struggling families. One report hit Ethan like a freight train. The firm's negligence had led to adverse outcomes in prenatal care, including cases tied to Emily's hometown during her pregnancy. Could Holt be connected to her miscarriage? Ethan's hands shook as he read, his penthouse office feeling like a coffin. He wanted to tell Emily, but fear stopped him. Her pain was a wound he'd already salted. Instead, he resolved to confront Holt. even if it meant risking his fortune, his reputation, everything. "I'm done being his puppet," he told his reflection, his voice steel. He hired a private investigator, knowing Holt played dirty. Rumors of disappeared enemies weren't just gossip. Emily, meanwhile, was wrestling with Holt's devilish offer, dirt on her father's death if she kept Ethan in the dark. Her journal entries turned raw. "Dad, Holt's dangling the truth like a carrot, but it feels like poison. Do I trust him or Ethan?" Sarah, over tacos at a Brooklyn dive, was blunt. "Holt's a snake, Em. Ethan's a mess, but at least he's bleeding for it." Emily nodded, but Holt's email gnawed at her, tempting her to trade justice for answers. She caught Ethan at a non-profit event, his tie loose, eyes tired but determined. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice softer than she meant. Ethan looked at her, no smirk, just honesty. "Because I owe you, and your dad, and I'm tired of running." Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to hate him, but his rawness was disarming. "Don't think this fixes anything," she said, but her usual venom was gone, replaced by a flicker of doubt. The city pulsed outside, its neon lights a stark contrast to the shadows creeping in. Ethan's investigator sent cryptic updates. "Holt's untouchable, but cracks are showing. Stay sharp." Emily's journal grew urgent. "Dad, I see Ethan fighting, but Holt's still out there. Am I strong enough for this?" Ethan, staring at his cracked whiskey glass, felt the weight of Holt's shadow. He wasn't just fighting for Emily's forgiveness. He was gearing up for a war with a tycoon who played for keeps. The penthouse was no longer a cage. It was a staging ground, and every move was a gamble. Would Emily see Ethan's change as real, or would Holt's offer pull her back into vengeance? With the truth about her past dangling just out of reach, the stakes were sky high, and one wrong step could burn it all down. Can love bloom in the ashes of betrayal, or is it just a mirage in the Manhattan heat? Ethan Carter's fighting to prove he's more than his past mistakes, but Emily Harper's heart is a fortress, and Richard Holt's shadow looms like a storm cloud ready to burst. As their fake marriage nears its end, a final test, a new life, and a lingering threat set the stage for a showdown that'll leave you breathless. This is Mystic Life Stories, weaving mystery, drama, and justice with a sassy wink. Drop a comment with the sweetest love story you've ever heard, and if you're loving this saga of redemption and revenge, smash that subscribe button to join the story squad. 5 months into the fake marriage, the Manhattan penthouse was no longer a battlefield, but a quiet crossroads. Ethan Carter's redemption was in full swing. His foundation for small businesses was thriving, and he'd taken a sledgehammer to his old arrogance, trading Rolexes for rolled-up sleeves. Emily Harper, still guarded, couldn't deny the shift. She'd watched him weather rejection from families he'd hurt. His $5,000 suit's now a canvas of coffee stains and regret. Her journal entries to her late father softened. "Dad, he's not the man who broke us anymore. But can I trust him?" Sarah, her buzz-cut bestie, wasn't sold, texting her gifs of skeptical cats with captions like, "Mr. Moneybags turning saint?" "Sure, Jan." Yet, Emily's heart was thawing, and the city's pulse seemed to hum with possibility. Emily decided to test Ethan one last time, not with words, but with a gauntlet that would make or break him. At her Brooklyn nonprofit, surrounded by volunteers sorting donated books, she cornered him. "You want forgiveness?" she said, her voice steady as steel. "Give up half your fortune, not for me, for the people you crushed." The room went silent, volunteers pretending not to eavesdrop. Ethan, in a flannel that screamed, "I shopped at Target," didn't flinch. His eyes, once cocky, now carried a quiet fire. "Done," he said, no hesitation. He signed over millions to his foundation that same day, his hand steady despite the zeros. The news hit the tabloids. Tech Titan goes broke for redemption? Ethan didn't care. He was building something real, and for the first time, it wasn't about him. Emily, reading the headlines, muttered, "Okay, Carter, you've got my attention," her lips twitching into a reluctant smile. Sarah, over tacos, rolled her eyes. "He's still a suit, Em. Don't get all Hallmark on me." But Emily's journal confessed. "Dad, I think he's for real." Their walls started crumbling through small, unguarded moments. Ethan and Emily teamed up on a Brooklyn community project, rebuilding a rec center for kids. Late nights sorting paint cans and hammering nails turned into something softer. Ethan, covered in sawdust, cracked corny jokes. "Why'd the hammer go to therapy? It had too many nail-biting moments," earning an eye roll and a laugh from Emily. She shared stories of her dad's goofy inventions, like a toaster that sang show tunes. "He'd have loved this chaos," she said, her voice warm. Ethan caught himself staring, her smile lighting up the dim rec center like a sunrise. One night, under a flickering fluorescent bulb, he handed her a coffee, their fingers brushing. "You're kinda amazing, you know," he said, no smirk, just truth. Emily's cheeks flushed, but she quipped, "Don't get sappy, Carter. You're still on probation." The air crackled, not with tension, but with something new. Trust, maybe even love. Then came a miracle that felt like a gift from the universe. Emily, feeling off for weeks, took a test on a whim and stared at the result. Pregnant. Her heart raced with joy and fear. After her miscarriage, she'd never dared hope for this again. She told Ethan at the rec center, her voice shaking. We're... She couldn't finish, but Ethan's face lit up, his eyes wet. "We've got this," he said, pulling her into a hug that felt like home. For the first time, their marriage wasn't fake. It was a promise. Ethan proposed again, not in a penthouse, but at her father's old upstate home, kneeling in the grass where she'd scattered his ashes. "I'm not perfect, Emily," he said, his voice raw, "but I'll spend my life trying to be the man you deserve." The ring was simple, no diamonds, just a band etched with her dad's favorite constellation. Emily, tears streaming, said yes, her laugh breaking through. "You're still a dork, Carter, but you're my dork." Sarah, reluctantly at the ceremony, muttered, "I'm only here for the cake," but her smirk said otherwise. But Richard Holt wasn't done playing puppet master. Days after the proposal, an encrypted email landed in Emily's inbox. "You think you've won? I'm never far." R.H. Ethan, reading over her shoulder, felt a chill. Holt's threat was a dark cloud, hinting at unfinished business. "Let him come," Emily said, her hand on her belly, her voice steel. Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. "Together," he said, their clasped hands a vow. They poured their energy into their foundation, supporting New York's forgotten families, soup kitchens, tech scholarships, rebuilt homes. The city embraced them, tabloids now calling them the Redemption Royals. Emily's journal glowed with hope. "Dad, we're building something new. For you. For us." But Holt's shadow lingered, a whisper of trouble that kept them glancing over their shoulders. The skyline glittered outside, a testament to their new beginning. But the penthouse was no longer their world. They moved to a Brooklyn brownstone, trading marble for hardwood, gold for heart. Ethan, once a king, was now a partner, hammering nails beside Emily, laughing at her paint-splattered ponytail. Their love wasn't a fairy tale. It was hard-won, rooted in truth and second chances. Yet Holt's email was a ticking clock, promising a storm they'd face as one. The rec center's grand opening loomed, a symbol of their shared fight. But would Holt crash the party? For now, they held tight, their unborn child a beacon of hope in a city that never stopped dreaming. Can a love forged in the fires of betrayal withstand a shadow that refuses to fade? Ethan Carter and Emily Harper have built a new life from the ruins of their past, but Richard Holt's cryptic threat looms like a storm on the horizon. This is Mystic Life Stories, where mystery, drama, and justice wrap with a sassy bow. Drop a comment. Did Emily make the right call for giving Ethan? Hit subscribe for more tales of redemption and revenge. The Brooklyn brownstone buzzed with warmth, a far cry from Ethan's cold penthouse days. Emily, glowing with pregnancy, and Ethan, now more flannel than flash, ran their foundation, uplifting New York's forgotten. Soup kitchens, tech camps, rebuilt homes. Their rec center's grand opening was a triumph, kids laughing under Emily's father's name painted on the wall. Emily's journal sang, "Dad, we're honoring you." Ethan, hammering a final nail, caught her eye and grinned. No trace of his old arrogance. Their love was a hard-won beacon, their unborn child proof that second chances could bloom in the city's grit. But Holt's shadow lingered. That final email, "I'm never far," was a chilling promise. A late-night news report hinted at his disappearance, yet whispers of his corporate spies kept Ethan and Emily vigilant. Their brownstone was a fortress of hope, but the lock clicked a little louder each night. Would Holt strike, or was he a ghost they'd outrun? The city watched, tabloids dubbing them the Redemption Royals. But the story wasn't over. Expert perspective and shocking punchline, Dr. Laura Bennett, a trauma expert, says, Emily's forgiveness shows the power of intuition. She saw Ethan's heart, not his past. Their love proves family and perseverance can heal. But Holt's threat reminds us justice is never final. Here's the jaw-dropper. A leaked file, days after Holt vanished, exposed his secret network of spies rigging lives like Emily's for decades. The kicker? His last known message, scrawled on a burner phone. "Game's not over." Is Holt plotting his return? What do you think? Did Emily make the right choice for giving Ethan? Can they face Holt if he resurfaces? What would you do against a hidden enemy like him? Share your thoughts below, spread this story to spark hope, and subscribe to Mystic Life Stories for more mysteries that hit the heart. See you in the next tale.